Hi everyone! As promised, today I'm going to talk about the last DAC combo that you'll ever need. This thing is terrific with both IEMs and desktop headphones, but it's absolutely fantastic with top-of-the-line planar and dynamic headphones that need a little bit more juice to open up. This guy is called Burson Conductor Voyager and is being offered in 3 distinct packages. The standard package starts at $3,799 US. The deluxe package includes better op-amps and silent power modules, plus a nicer AC to DC power supply. And lastly, the max package includes every previous upgrade, plus a much beefier AC to DC power supply, called the Fusion Core. I will review the max package that goes for $4,999 US, so definitely high-end material, and later on I'll compare it with its smaller brother Conductor GT4 Max that I reviewed 1 year ago. So I have a lot of ground to cover today, so get yourself a snack and a drink and let's hit some eardrums. Design-wise, if you already watched my Soloist Voyager review, then you know exactly how the Conductor Voyager looks like because they share absolutely the same case, the same dimensions and weight. The only difference is that we now have a better cooling solution they called Cool Case 2.0 that seriously dropped the working temperatures. Here are my measurements that I did with a Bosch infrared thermal detector. I remember nitpicking about this in my Soloist Voyager and then Conductor GT4 videos, but that is no longer the case with today's Voyager that dropped its temperatures on average by around 7 degrees Celsius. Everything you see is made out of aluminum and overall we're dealing with a solid piece of equipment. In the usual fashion, we have every headphone jack needed to power the easiest and the most demanding loads out there. We even have a 3.5mm microphone input, just in case you are into multiplayer games or competitive gaming. The 4 buttons on its front panel lets you select the input, the output, play around with the user interface, and the last button flips the screen into a vertical stance, just in case you'll want to save space by placing it vertically on the table. On its back you'll find a USB Type-C, coaxial, optical, and a Bluetooth antenna. On the analog side, there are 2 pairs of XLR and RCA inputs and a pair of RCA and XLR analog outputs, since it can also work as a standalone preamplifier or headphone amplifier. A subwoofer output is a nice addition, and if you want to turn on your entire Burson audio lineup with just a single button, you can spot 3 triggers that will make that happen. Perhaps the biggest upgrade I see with this Voyager is the inclusion of this remote control that looks like a miniature Conductor Voyager, and the best part is that I can control every conductor, soloist, timekeeper and composer with just one single remote. You can select the input, the output, the volume, or mute the sound, so it's very convenient. It's a big quality of life improvement. As for tech inside it, we're looking at a fully balanced, fully discrete DAC preamplifier and headphone amplifier. Burson Audio finally adopted the latest and the greatest DAC chip by ESS Technologies, the ES9039 Pro. This is the desktop variant, not the mobile version that they've been using for a while now. And since it's an 8-channel chip, one single unit is enough for a fully balanced operation. It uses 8 on semi-bipolar transistors that will be driving your precious headphones. We have 4 V7 Vivid Pro op-amps, 6 sets of max current power supplies, and their best volume implementation yet. Power-wise, we have 10 juicy watts per channel in 16 ohms via that 4-pin XLR balanced output, and half that number via its regular 1/4 inch headphone jack. If you have a feeling that you've seen those numbers before, then you are totally right. However, if you consider that those 10 watts per channel are identical to those coming from the Conductor GT3, then you are totally wrong, because this thing is biased into pure Class A operation, getting the upper hand when driving both low sensitivity and high impedance headphones compared to any other Conductor model that was previously released. Last but not least, the Max package also includes quite a special AC to DC power supply called the Fusion Core. In traditional power supply designs, we have MOSFET transistors that are powering on and off the power transistors, and that is happening quite fast, but not ultra fast like gallium nitride transistors are doing inside the Fusion Core, working at 1 MHz speeds. So this ultra fast and high frequency switching combined with a much beefier DC filtering and regulation stage leads to a much more effective noise reduction, delivering a much cleaner power to all of the components. And before you ask, I've used it mostly as a DAC and headphone amplifier with plenty of headphones and IMs, but also as a DAC and preamp with the loudspeakers that you can see behind me. Alright everyone, now let's talk about its sound, because that is the most important part for me and probably for you as well. Burson Audio has been making plenty of devices, and for many years now they have separated devices that do one thing only, and they have all-in-one devices like Conductor series that can be seen as 3-in-1 devices, so DAC, headphone amplifier and preamplifier, and all of those functions are working as intended. However, when it comes to sound quality, I always felt that their Conductor series are more like outstanding preamplifiers and headphone amplifiers and just okay to great sounding DACs, but not amazing. So I could compare the Conductor series with some dedicated headphone amplifiers pretty easily and preamplifiers, but not so much with dedicated DA converters that to me sounded slightly better. But everything changed with the Conductor GT4, and I could finally hear a much more technical sounding Conductor that was both revealing and distortionless at higher volumes when pushing it to its absolute limits. The updated Conductor Voyager, however, was built to overkill levels, and you can see that its motherboard is overpopulated with hundreds, maybe even thousands of components. So everything you see in there, the LPF stage, the output stage, the DAC section, the power output, everything was just created as overkill as much as possible in one little unit that does everything. And I feel that with the Conductor Voyager, it's no longer about amazing technicalities or about, a super extended frequency response. This time around is about something else. Not once did I feel that the treble is becoming too sharp or too sizzling or remotely fatiguing. The top end stretches well beyond the top octave, yet remains cool and composed and incredibly controlled, something that I just barely felt on the Conductor GT4, for example. And considering that I'm talking about an ESS Sabre DAC combined with a solid-state headphone amplifier, it's quite shocking getting this amazing tonal balance that is more natural and more organic sounding to my ears as compared to a more linear sounding GT3 and GT4 by Burson Audio. And the more music I'm listening to, the more I'm realizing that nothing is getting into the spotlight, nothing is really hidden, everything is clear, precise and quite detailed and wonderfully tight. I'm probably going to mention control and tightness quite a lot in this review because this is really what defines the sound of the Conductor Voyager. It's really tight sounding, especially with top-of-the-line planar and also with outstanding loudspeakers. It's very controlled sounding in a way. Looking at Burson Audio, they've been on a constant quest to improve their power supply designs, starting with the AC to DC conversion, then regulation, then filtering stages. But here is what I like most about these guys. They do not force you to get the Max package. So if you don't have some strong feelings about clean power, you can go with the standard package and save your wallet for some Christmas presents. Step up to the deluxe package and you get a noticeable improvement in AC to DC conversion and noise filtering. But it's only when you reach the Max package you realize that this is how the Conductor Voyager is supposed to sound, not only with IMs and headphones, but especially with top-of-the-line loudspeakers. I won't repeat everything I already mentioned in my Conductor GT4 video, where I discussed the Fusion Core, what it does, what it improves, But I will just mention that there is a noticeable improvement when you go from the standard to deluxe package, and it's a much bigger improvement when you go from the deluxe to the max package. Only with the max package you can hear a noticeable improvement in sound transparency, detail retrieval. The noise floor goes down into the abyss. It's absolutely stunning how much clearer does it sound with the Fusion core and with all the upgrades found in the max package. You start seeing deeper into the layers of music, and the entire presentation is cleaning up beautifully. The veil is lifted completely, and the sound stands before you open, unmasked, and full of life. It's almost redundant discussing about dynamics or transients in Burson audio gear, because they all have that trademark speed, going in and out in split seconds and just pounding your eardrums with absolute force. However, I feel that this Voyager lineup, both the Conductor and the Soloist Voyager, they are cut from different cloth, because this time around is not only about some nasty transients and dynamics hitting you over and over again. This time is about a much nicer refinement, especially in the bass region. The bass quality is improving quite a lot. The layering, the subtleties, the long decays in the bass, all of that is happening sadly only on the Voyager series and not so much on the GT variants. Yes, the GTs are also sounding great, but the bass quality is on another level on the Voyager. It's cleaner, it's faster, it's nimble, you have additional layers, everything is just more refined sounding compared to any of the GT variant. Sometimes it feels tube-like in nature, like I'm listening to a hybrid or a tube-based amplifier, but this super high Class A bias is making it sound so relaxed and easygoing that I can listen even to some overcrowded tracks or some aggressive music like rock and metal, something that works absolutely amazing on the Conductor Voyager. Muddiness and veil, they feel like distant memories on the Conductor Voyager, because veil is no more, it's simply lifted and it's going out of the window, and muddiness, again, that is not happening, because this is one of the cleanest sounding DAC combos that I have experienced up to this day, and this says a lot about the performance of this unit. I used the Bandos Avia headphone when assessing its dynamics, because this is a very special sounding pair of headphones. They sound like a pair of Odyssey LCD4 on steroids, absolutely outstanding in the bass and mid-range region, and the treble is not piercing my eardrums. It's absolutely fantastic if you want to listen to music for a couple of hours. What I felt on the Conductor is that it was slamming the acceleration to the floor, and it was inviting you into a more relaxed listen. Its transients can go absolutely wild when the music calls for it and when the drivers can keep up. And not once did I feel that the Conductor was becoming sloppy, lean, or politely boring in its presentation. When discussing the Soundstage and stereo separation, I believe that we have two very different sounding Conductor Voyagers. First, the standard package, and then the max package that completely reshapes everything I know about technicalities, but especially in terms of resolution and soundstage and 3D effects. First of all, you'll notice a serious bump in resolution, and of course you can hear some additional notes that are not there, sadly, on the standard Conductor. And then you start realizing that the sound is not playing so close to your face, but much further away from your face. And you start noticing that the music is not playing in a 2D field, but more like a 3D field, because there are some notes closer to your face and much more deeper into the mix. And you start seeing the music in different layers, in sub-layers of music, something that is quite interesting on this one. As you keep scrolling through your playlist, there's a dramatic change happening, and the music is no longer like a left or right affair, and you are looking just to your left or right while listening to music, as the sound is gaining quite an impressive depth. For example, the soloist steps a little closer to your face, ever so gently entering your personal space, while accompanying instruments take a few steps back, and musical notes begin popping into existence from different inception points. Some firing straight at you, while others arrive at a microsecond later, creating the illusion of a living and breathing 3D scene that blossoms between and beyond your speakers. And suddenly you're not just listening to music, but you are picking up every inhale, every exhale, and you start picking up notes out of thin air. And this is really an ear-to-ear green moment, because the music is no longer just playing left or right, but it's all over your head, and you start asking the same question all over again. Why have I never heard this track behave like this before? And how is there spatial information that the standard conductor simply refuses to reveal? And yes, the fully upgraded Conductor Voyager is a shapeshifter, and if you are listening to open back headphones or loudspeakers, then prepare to get your attention hijacked. For years now, I've been repeating the same words over and over again about Burson amplifiers. Great with full-size loudspeakers, decent with IAMs, but not really outstanding. Not because they weren't trying, but because when you put so much more power on top and you bias everything into a deeper class operation, it's really difficult lowering the noise floor. It almost feels like mission impossible. But I believe they found a solution, simply dialing down the gain and also the power output on the low gain. And that's exactly what they did on the Conductor Voyager. So I used two of the most ultra-sensitive IAMs that I have in my possession, and I connected them via 4-pin XLR, low gain, and to my surprise, I've heard a much lower noise floor versus their Soloist Voyager and also Conductor GT4. So these worked absolutely outstanding, and I could enjoy all of my music, but only when I started connecting and disconnecting them with music on pause, I observed just a small uptick in white noise. So these were good, but not truly noiseless completely like a few headphone amplifiers could deliver. Will it replace the quietest boutique headphone amplifier that was specifically designed for ultra-sensitive loads? Probably not, but for the most majority of IAMs, I believe it works beautifully. Now, moving on to power output, I've used quite a few headphones, but with the most demanding ones, I arrived, I believe, at 75 out of 100 steps available. That was with the Susvara OG by Hyphaman, and mind you, 75 out of 100, that was around 100 dB. With the Susvara Unveiled, I was at around 70, with the Bando Savia 68, and everything was much lower. So obviously I had plenty of headroom for some wild dynamic swings, and the power reserve is always quite high on the Conductor Voyager. In short, it rides smoothly even with difficult loads. It will drive anything and everything with aplomb, and always will remain a mountain of headroom. And I believe dynamics always remain snappy, energetic, and downright punchy, no matter the headphones attached to it. Now let's compare the Conductor Voyager with the Conductor GT4, as this is what most of you want to know. I won't touch base on the looks and build quality, but I will just mention that the Voyager has a much better remote control. It's also a hair wider, it's deeper, and has a better cooling system around the motherboard, and overall it's cooler during prolonged listening sessions, and its user interface is considerably more complex. And if you like to fiddle with sound enhancements, then the Voyager already looks like a more sophisticated unit inside and out. Sound-wise, after conducting double blind tests over the course of a day, I have drawn my conclusions. And as much as I'd like to tell you that there's a massive difference between them, that won't be the real story. However, if you use some higher grade headphones and higher grade loudspeakers, then you'll be able to spot these differences much easier, even in the first 5 minutes of use. The most significant difference lies in their frequency response and also tonal balance. The Voyager is just relaxing you fully and shows you the beautiful side of music listening, so you are not thinking about those technicalities, about how clean is the music, but how great and how amazing the music is sounding to you without, going into those small details. While on the GT4 that is happening, but not to the same extent. It's also fun, it's also engaging, but not exactly as relaxing, as soothing as easygoing like the Voyager is sounding. While the bass output might feel quite similar, the more you listen, the more you realize that the Voyager offers you a higher quality bass. There are additional layers of bass, there are some nuances in the bass, it feels of a higher quality and you can hear some additional things happening in the bass, something that the GT4 does but not to the same extent. The music feels less strained and agitated on the Voyager, and sometimes there are hints of aggressiveness on the GT4. And once you move to more complex renditions and tens of musical instruments starts to interplay between each other, then you realize that the Voyager is simply playing in another league. Not only the bass is of a higher quality, but also the rest of the frequency response is also quite different. For example, the treble, what's interesting is that it's more detailed a little bit, but at the same time it's less aggressive and there's simply less listening fatigue with the Voyager versus the GT4. And please don't mistake a higher sharpness on the GT4 with a better detail retrieval or better treble extension, because that is not really the case. The wall treble region feels less compressed on the Voyager, with no smearing or over-sharpening artifacts on the Voyager, while sometimes it might slash your eardrums on the GT4 with a more defined sharpness. So you might find the Voyager a little bit more organic and natural sounding, and maybe the GT4 more linear or a little bit clinical sounding in a direct comparison. While trying a couple of headphones, I also realized that the Voyager works with a wider variety of headphones. For example, it works absolutely beautifully with the Sennheiser HD800S, pumping a little bit more mid-range, adding a little bit more bass while calming that upper treble delivery. And the same goes with the Hifeman Susvara Unveiled, that just shows you such a strong treble delivery but not as impressive bass and mid-range, and that's exactly what the Conductor Voyager is doing. It's working more like an yin and yang for these type of headphones, infusing a bit more bass, a bit more mid-range, and also calming the top octave that the GT4 is not doing so amazingly. Last but not least, the Conductor Voyager simply had a better grip and control over the drivers with both the Susvara OG and also Sennheiser HD800S. And if you check the specs, you'll observe that the Voyager has more power at higher impedances, like at 300-600 ohms, almost 40 to 50% more power, and that works in favor with something like HD800S or Beyerdynamic T1. There is just more power, and since it's biased into deeper Class A operation, the control of the drivers is better and it just sounds nicer with both low sensitivity headphones and also high impedance headphones. The bottom line is that both are spectacular, and if you already own the GT4, then selling it and then upgrading to the Conductor Voyager is quite a hassle. But if half measures don't define you and you want just the best, then you have just one single solution: getting the Conductor Voyager. Wrapping up, if I were to pick one unit from tens of all-in-one devices that I have tested over the years, then that would be the Conductor Voyager. Everything that I have envisioned a preamp, a DAC and headphone amplifier should be and should sound is already there on the Conductor Voyager. I have complained about a higher working temperature on the Soloist Voyager, on the Conductor GT4, but instead of starting a war over email, the Burson guys took it as constructive feedback and came back with a much better cooling solution, calling it Cool Case 2.0, dropping the working temperature on average by around 7 degrees Celsius, which is amazing. I also complained about the low gain offering too little foreplay with ultra-sensitive IAMs and also having a higher noise floor, which was also beautifully solved on the Conductor Voyager. The power output now almost feels like limitless. I can drive anything that I want and there is enough headroom remaining on top, and mind you, I'm listening quite loud. The sound matured considerably, and it's no longer about hearing the last drop of information or about getting hit by a thunder-like bass impact, things that we already have on the Conductor GT4. This time around is about adding a few layers of refinement, that were only mildly present on the Conductor GT4 and completely missing on Burson's lower tier devices. This Voyager is no longer raw and unpolished, but quite exquisite when trying to show the beautiful side of music listening, and that's why it fully deserved my highly impressive award. Before you go, if you'd like to know a lot more about this one, then please check out my written review that I left below that contains about 4 times the information of this video. Please consider smashing the like button and subscribe if you found this video helpful, and I'll see you very soon.